In the decades following the 907 CE end of the Tang Dynasty, we have the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period. After that is a long period of 3 major empires, 2 in the north, where it's one after the other, and then just one in the south, dominating the scene for hundreds of years. There's also a smaller state that came to abut the northern and southern powers. Already in 916 CE, the Khan of the Khitans, Abaoji, established the Liao Dynasty in the north. The Khitans had been a forest people of Manchuria and had picked up nomadism. After Abaoji's death in 926 CE, his widow placed the succession of preferred sons on the throne. 937 CE had the Liao Empire expand some, conquering a large chunk of Han Chinese occupied territory, an area given the name the 16 Prefectures. This chunk of land housed some 10 to 15 million people, and the Chinese under the Liao, in the 16 prefectures and beyond, were governed in the style of a Chinese empire under the ruler in his capacity as emperor, but the empire's dual administration system had it that the ruler in his capacity of Khan oversaw his nomadic subjects accordingly. Khitan rule over the 16 prefectures would be a constant thorn in the minds of the coming Song, whose hearts ached for a rule over their conception of all of China, like the emperors of the Great Han and Tang dynasties had done. Beyond the 16 prefectures, the Liao managed to capture the great city of Kaifeng in 947, though they were unable to hold on to it. Those who followed the Khitan, the Jurchen, would realize this conquest thoroughly, and those who followed the Jurchen, the Mongols, would go much farther still. In 960, the Song Dynasty begins with the usurpation of the later Zhou's child king by General Zhou Quangyin, or Emperor Taizu. Taizu and the following 2 kings would recapture much of northern and southern China, and multiple reforms were undertaken. Taizu reformed the military, weakening the possibilities of rebellion through dividing the military into 3 equal units with regular replacements of soldiers and officers. In another effort, which weakened the power of a would-be threat, he diluted the responsibilities of the highest-ranking minister. Many would-be warlord aristocrats had been killed in the wars of the prior decades, the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period. So finally, in an action that would both help prevent the maintenance of the threat of an entrenched aristocracy, as well as just help fill the much-needed ranks of imperial officials, Taizu and subsequent rulers relied much more than the Tang on selecting important officials from those who showed great prowess on the Confucian classics-based exams. Taizu ruled until 976 and is followed by Emperor Taizong. In his reign, there were multiple failed attempts in 976 and 985 at capturing the Liao-controlled 16 prefectures. Taizong rules until 997, and then Emperor Zhenzong assumes power. Under Zhenzong, peace between the 2 great powers was reached with the 1004 CE Khitan-Song Treaty of Chanyuan. The Khitans at the time were ruled by Yelu Longshu, or Emperor Shenzong, who ruled from 982 to 1031 CE. The Chanyuan Treaty came after a significant Khitan invasion into the Song Empire, and the Song now had to provide large annual gifts of silver and silk. Zhenzong ruled until 1022 CE and is followed by Emperor Renzong, who reigned until 1063 CE. The 1020s see the Song start producing paper money, while the amount of bronze coin production continued rising, being at 800,000 in 997 CE and 6 million by 1085. Iron production was also rising greatly, reaching at least 125,000 tons yearly by 1078 CE. Meanwhile, a new important state emerged. After the 10th century rise of the Tanguts, the Xisha kingdom is founded in 1038 by Weiming Yuanhao, or Emperor Jingzong. This smaller state would now sidle along its 2 larger neighbors before its 1227 defeat at the hands of the Mongols. Under Emperor Renzong, some efforts were made at fiscal and military reforms in 1043, but pushback soon elevated anti-reform voices in the government. In an embarrassing treaty of 1044, the Song agreed to send silver, silk, and tea annually to the Shisha, though the Shisha were often insufficiently threatening for the Song to respect this agreement. Renzong's reign was followed by Emperor Yingzong, and then Emperor Shenzong follows in 1067, ruling until 1085. Early on, in 1069, reformist official Wang Anshi was put in charge of the government, and he implemented the so-called new policies, which included the ending of corvée labor. Under the Song, much art is produced, with a notable contrast between the earlier Northern Song broad landscape art and the later more individual object-centered art of the Southern Song. In 1072, a famous Northern Song landscape piece, Early Spring, is painted by Gyoshi. Shenzong is followed by the child emperor Zhejiang, who rules into his early 20s before he dies in 1100. Emperor Huizhang follows him and rules from 1101 to 1125 CE. During Huizhang's reign, the Jurchen would arrive in a big way in the north. The Jurchen were subjects of the Liao Empire until Wanyan Min, or Aguda, chief of the northern Jurchen, unified the Jurchen and rebelled against his Liao master in 1114. In 1117, Aguda formally founded the Jurchen Jin Empire in Manchuria. This nascent Jin dynasty now conquered some more. In 1120, the Song entered into an alliance with the Jurchen, seeing once again an opportunity to attain the 16 prefectures. The Jin attacked into Liao's north, while the Song attacked in the south. While the Jin had little trouble in their conquest, the Song military were far less effective. It didn't help that troops had to be allocated to suppress the Fangla rebellion of 1120 to 1122. In the north, the Jurchen completed their conquest of the Liao, and the 16 prefectures would now continue to lie outside of Song hands. A Liao prince fled west, where he and his fellow Karakhatans overthrew the Karakhanids to establish their own empire, and further Karakhatan military success led to the fall of the Seljuk Sultanate. But the Jurchen weren't satiated with Liao, and in 1127, now under the reign of Wangyang Shen, or Emperor Taizu, the Jurchen took northern China from the Song, capturing the great capital of Kaifeng, a city housing some 1 million inhabitants, and they captured Emperor Qinzong, who'd only recently come to power after Emperor Huizhang's abdication. The court fled south, where Gaozhong followed as the next emperor, and thus began the period of the Southern Song, which lasted until 1276. Gaozhong ruled until 1162, and really until 1187 as retired emperor as well. In 1129, the Jurchen continued their conquest, crossing the Yangtze, and the Song and Jurchen battled for the following years until agreement was reached in a treaty of 1142 CE on the boundaries dividing the two empires, and of course, gifts of silk and silver from the Song to the Jin. Beyond merely having to provide tribute, the Song agreed to the mandated ongoing acknowledgement of the superiority of Jin. Another treaty would be needed after conflict arose again in 1161. A Song victory in battle reduced the conflict to minor quarrels before the Treaty of 1165. The Southern Song were good for a little over another century of life, and China, Jin and Song together, grew significantly in population, reaching some 115 million people by 1200 CE. But these two powers fell to the Mongols, first the Jin and then the Song fell in 1279. China's story then continued under Kublai Khan's Yuan Dynasty.